Hola, 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 cage fighting connoisseurs. This is KidNativeBloodyElbow.com, joined once again by the inestimable, the ineffable, the one, the only Dallas S.
Ooh,
Winston. I threw everybody because it's
man.
not Dallas S. Winston, it's just Dallas Winston. And Eugene thought I was talking about him and Eugene S. Robinson,
No,
author
no,
of
no.
Fight, Everything You Ever Want to Know About. Huh? Huh?
I,
Everything you
I,
ever want to know about ass kicking, but we're afraid to get your ass kicked for asking. Don't
wrong,
stomp on
wrong,
my on your
wrong.
subtitle, man.
No,
And try to get your face in the frame, Eugene. People are seeing
yeah.
your lovely fuchsia tie and pea green shirt, but they're not seeing.
Ooh, look, look. No, no,
What is that? Is that Paisley? Is that like an early '90s Seinfeld tribute tie?
no. Oh no, come on, Seinfeld, never, never,
Is
never,
that a
never,
hand
never.
painted? I'm just talking about the era, the early '90s.
You know what? I'm such a thief. I don't know where I got it from. I probably lifted it from somebody.
It looks like you stole it around 1992, if I know my tie history. And Dallas, how are you today? How's Chewy?
Hey, buddy, I'm swell.
Are you
Chewy
ineffable
swell.
and inestimable?
I don't. I
You
know
don't
what
even know what those mean. That's
50% of
Dallas
those.
Winston, everybody.
Probably.
That's what I was applauding. I was applauding your SAT power session. You know.
Nate's got the
Indeed.
thesaurus toilet paper all kicking in
That's
next
right,
to
man. I got kids to educate. So,
Yes.
we've got a special treat for the viewers. Based on the premise that our viewers are young, utterly uneducated savages, maybe not our viewers, but MMA fans in general, who are completely
That's
unfamiliar.
you. That's you making that assumption. I'm not making
It
that
is,
assumption.
but I'm just making this premise. This is why this was my idea for the show. That's why I'm the producer and you're the talent, Eugene, and don't you forget it. My idea for the show, it is based on the premise that MMA fans have no concept of history, morality, ethics, anything else. So we're going to introduce the basics, starting with the Golden Rule, possibly the oldest moral guide in human history. The rule frequently stated as do unto others as you would have them do unto you, but it actually goes back all the way to the Code of Hammurabi in the Babylonian days, and it was distilled then as an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, with the idea that if somebody gouged out your eye, you are only entitled to gouge out their eye in return. You are not entitled to kill them, and it was an attempt to scale back the brutality and savagery. And then later, through Confucius and others, not a Christian ethic, by the way, but yeah. So we're gonna try to apply this to MMA.
Yeah, we're
So,
dying. We're
so that in a
dying
very
here.
simple nutshell is our show today.
This is our show today. The Golden Rule:
The
do unto
beheading.
others as you would have them do unto you, and or an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And we're going to talk about specific cases, such as Mike Kyle's stomp down on Brian Olsen after the bell in the WEC back in the day, about 10 years ago. We're going to talk about Gerard Gordeau. One, when he eye gouged Yuki Nakai in Vale Tudo, Japan 94, 95, 95, and blinded him in one eye. Also, then Hoist Gracie fought Gerard Gordeau at UFC 1, and his response to being bitten by Gerard Gordeau, according to Hoist, was to hold on the choke a little extra. We'll discuss whether or not that was a good application of the Golden Rule. We'll also talk about Wes Sims stomping Frank Mir until he was disqualified. And we're going to talk about steroids. Is it a violation of the Golden Rule to use steroids or other performance-enhancing drugs when your opponent is not? Same with marijuana. And then what about the BJ Penn versus Frankie Edgar situation? What was the better application of the Golden Rule? What Rory MacDonald did to BJ Penn, where he mocked him and humiliated him, but didn't beat him into unconsciousness despite having every potential to do so, presumably, or the Frankie Edgar model where he just stone beat him down? What is it that BJ would have done to the other guy and would want done to him? And the final topic, was it a violation of the Golden Rule for Dan Henderson to conceal his injury before UFC 151 and then give the UFC and John Jones last-minute notice before revealing to them that he was not going to be able to fight at UFC 151? So give me your thoughts quickly on the general.
Ignoring all of that, we'll lead off with the hooker and the Google executive.
Exactly. And so this is a little news story I sent Eugene and Dallas before the show. So I'm going to tweet this show out to our audience so they can watch this live. Eugene, tell us about the hooker and the Google executive.
I'll tell you a story near and dear to my heart, and I'll try to
Now
keep
first,
it.
tell us the Google and the hooker executive. Then tell us the story near and dear to your heart.
A married Google executive with a couple of kids who his family said about him, There's nothing he loved more than his boat, even though in the face of that, it seems it was clear there's something that he loved quite a bit more than his boat, to wit, heroin and hookers. Had an assignation on his boat escape with a 26-year-old hooker, I believe. The objective of which was to have a little heroin fun and probably do a little screwing. He subsequently overdosed, and she left him to his fate, and now is being charged with second-degree murder against all that seems right and fair in my mind. However,
What do you think is right and fair?
I'll give you a little vignette that shouldn't take more than 45 seconds. There was an Oxbow videographer, an English kid, who came over to San Francisco, and he said, I want you to meet these video guys from Germany that are going to buy some Oxbow videos. I'm usually pretty punctual. I showed up at 6. I showed up at 6:10. I was 10 minutes late. The German guys are panicked. They can't speak to me over the intercom. They just run downstairs. They buzz me up. I go upstairs. I find the guy laying in the bathroom. He knew that I'm usually pretty punctual. He disappeared in the bathroom about 5:55, overdosed on heroin purposefully, and was expiring on the floor. I call a friend of mine, a whipping
So
boys
this is
over.
the proverbial cry for help suicide attempt.
I call my guitar player, Dr. Steve Ballinger, who used to be a guitar player for Whipping Boy, and I say, hey, man, this guy is freaking OD'd. What should I do? He's like, give him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. I go, you can forget that. You know, he's like, this is not about homophobia. I go, this has nothing to do with homophobia. The guy is screwing and fucking tenderloin hookers. Who knows what he's got? I care about me. He goes, okay, well, if you're afraid of getting vomit in your mouth, close his mouth and you can breathe in through his nose. I go, what? Like, that's better? He goes, look, if you leave, you're going to feel guilty. And I said, no, I won't. And he goes, look, just slap his face. Can you do that? Can you slap? I go, that I can do. So I slap the guy's face. He doesn't come to. He says, you need to call 911. I go, can't I just leave? And he goes, you can't. You have a moral obligation to help this guy. I go, fuck it. He wants to die, not me. And he goes, please call 911. Valuable time is wasting. So needless to say, I left out the part that I was actually on a date. And the date was there with me. So in order to impress the date, I actually decided to be a man of action and call 911. They showed up. They shot the guy up with Narcan. And he lived that day. After 3 other incidents, this was on a Thursday. He tried to OD on Friday. He tried to OD on Saturday. And he finally succeeded again on Sunday.
So no Eugene was there to save the day on Sunday. Is that?
Yeah. He chained himself he handcuffed his girlfriend to the bed, said that he didn't want to die alone. He wanted her to watch him as he died. She freaked out, told the next door neighbors. The next door neighbors watched him on Saturday, and then he tried again on Saturday, and they freaked out and they left town. And Sunday, no girlfriend, no Eugene, no next door neighbors. He finally achieved his objective, which was suicide.
Well, I guess bully for him, he achieved his dream, and bully for you, Eugene. I never knew you were a life-saving hero.
So you would have
been through that.
Hey, let Dallas talk, Eugene.
Oh, you would have said that if I had followed my
Your
first
response to
instinct,
let Dallas talk, Eugene, is to talk more.
continue talking. No, if you said if I left, I would have been open to second-degree murder charges and would have been a lesser human being for leaving him there on the floor, the guy who was dead 3 days later. That's your contention based on your copious Facebook postings.
Nobody knows about my Facebook posting. Those are for friends only.
Oh,
now,
oops.
Exactly. Now, Dallas, what is your take when a woman agrees to exchange sex for money and apparently brings along some heroin to make things even more fun, injects the guy, and then leaves him to die? Party foul or party cool?
Well, she injected the guy. Is that? I guess the only.
The surveillance tapes on his yacht show that she, at least according to the reports, that she injected him. So this is.
She didn't knock him out.
No, it was a consensual injection, much like Kathy Smith and John Belushi back in the day.
Correct.
I'm just
Quick
digesting
judgment,
that.
Eugene.
In this
Come on.
world of
I mean, quick
MMA.
judgment, Dallas.
Now you're interrupting Dallas now.
I'm just judging the fact that I'm weighing out the term consensual injection at this point, and it's part of my job, and I'm paid to do this at this point. So now that that's all settled in, isn't that kind of one of those situations where if you take off with a hooker in heroin, like, is it really? I
Caveat
mean,
emptor.
I mean, at some point when you're in that situation, I don't know. Is the question, should the hooker be charged for murder? The fact that she
No, legally, we'll leave that to legal authorities. The question is, was that a party foul or was that kosher?
He means
and my,
moral obligation. Was she
in
morally obligated?
I
listen,
mean,
at this
I'm
point, I'm
calling
just gonna
like
have to speak from
if you knew
opinion.
the hooker and the dude, would you call her for a go round and trust her or not? Is she did she violate her own professional ethics as a heroin dealing prostitute?
Jesus.
Let's
Well,
get
my
back to you,
my
Mando.
copy of the heroin
Not guilty.
prostitution code of ethics is a little faded at this point. You
That's the
asked me
kind of
just
thing that
about
gets done.
50,000 questions. To get back to your original one, the only one I feel comfortable answering, is that a party foul? No. That's my contribution to the show thus
Oh,
far.
wow. So we are dealing with one voice. We said the purpose of that in the show was to establish us as the moral arbiters here. We've got me, the shining light of goodness and virtue. We've got Eugene as, well, wait, Eugene's the lifesaver. So perhaps he's good, the voice of moral virtue. I'm the judgmental voice.
Correct.
And Dallas is the neutral arbiter of justice himself, blind justice holding the scales. How's that work for everybody?
That works fine for me.
All right, well, let's go through these case-by-case basis, brass tacks. Mike, Kyle, Brian Olson, who remembers that best and wants to tell us about it? I can already tell you it was Dallas Winston. Tell us what happened in that incident.
It was a very grievous lack of sportsmanship, and that's a big
Just give the
understatement.
facts. We'll save the judgments for later. Tell us what happened.
He's beating the shit out of this dude, and
In a
he's
cage
out.
fight, legally fighting, Mike, Kyle, Brian Olson.
Yes,
Okay,
in a
go
cage
ahead.
fight, legally fighting.
Yes.
And he's on top of the dude, pounding him out, and he's out. The ref moves in to stop it, and Olson keeps cracking away, and even throws a soccer kick to the face in there to an opponent
You mean Kyle?
Yeah, Mike Kyle threw the sock. I mean, it took him forever to live this down, and I've actually got to the point lately where I've stated, I think, it's time to not, every time I mention Mike Kyle, to bring up that incident. But it was terrible at the time. I mean, people were, it takes a special circumstance for MMA fans to unite on any point. Like, that's why the Korean Zombie is special. You don't see unanimously the MMA audience all get up in arms. And in this case, they were, but obviously for a very bad reason. And it was, I mean, if there is ever any semblance of respect, honor, and all that shit in martial arts, this was a blasphemy upon that very foundation.
A clear violation. Eugene, do you agree that this incident of Mike Kyle continuing to attack Brian Olson, even after the fight was over and even after the ref tried to stop him, is a clear violation of the Golden Rule? And remember, we're talking about the Golden Rule, not any bigger moral statements. We're talking about the moral.
No, okay. I'm gonna go even smaller than that. It violates my personal sense of fair play, but you have to understand that from Mike Kyle's point of view, the Golden Rule as it's applied could have been perfectly consistent. I am treating Olson exactly the way I'm comfortable with being treated, So, and you'll find that guys who have had terrible fathers like Stalin and Hitler very, very frequently find their later actions completely consistent with their earlier life experiences, Life is bitter and brutal, and it's been that way for me, and I fully expect it to be that way with you if you come into contact with me.
Yeah, that is an excellent point. The Golden Rule, which is do unto others as you would have them do unto you, does have a different meaning if you're, say, Joseph Stalin or Pittsburgh Phil, the famous mafia hitman, or Adolf Hitler or others. If you're a completely rotten, reprehensible person, you can theoretically obey the Golden Rule by doing horrible things to other people in the expectation that when your turn comes, you're not going to be begging for mercy. Like I remember the Joe Pesci character in Casino, based on Tony the Ant Spilotro of the Chicago Mob, when he ends up, after a long movie and a long life in real life of murder and mayhem, allegedly, he was never convicted in court of anything, is beaten to death in his skivvies, in some tighty-whities, in a cornfield, and buried alive. Yep. He didn't beg for mercy or nothing, did he? He just, I mean, he took what he had coming, so I don't think Tony would say that was a violation of the Golden Rule. Dallas, do you think this violated the Golden Rule or not?
Yes, I do. And I had one question beforehand, one observation. I wasn't sure what this show was going to be about. Now that I know, I'm far too sober to be engaged in this kind of discussion. So I think next time
Dallas, take a 15-minute break for technical difficulties.
you'll find me a little more enlightening next time around. My question, and this is earth-shattering. It's not really, but that's kind of the theme here. When you sign a contract to fight under the rules, does that then supersede the golden rule? Because I'm pretty sure
Or does
Olson
that
didn't,
modify the golden rule? I think it does. I think it does.
unless we're going to start, that'll be a new addition to the fighter questionnaire. Things like health, safety. Did your dad kick the shit out of you with a hammer or anything?
Do you believe in following the rules that you have just signed and agreed to follow? Like,
Well, we don't know what those UFC contracts say. I don't. I've never seen
we've
one.
seen a couple of them. We've
I
seen
haven't.
we've seen the one they offered Eddie Alvarez.
I haven't seen Bulgaria either, though, so I'm not quite sure that it exists.
Some of us have more faith in the globe and the atlas than others, but
And I'm sure. Did Kyle sign the contract? See, I'm a great defense attorney. Did Mike Kyle even sign the contract? Did he even see the contract? Or was
we're
it
going to have
signed
to
by
presume that he did. We're going to have to presume that he did, and maybe we're going to have to reconsider Eugene's designation as the voice of good and reason.
Maybe he didn't hear the bell. Maybe he didn't hear the bell.
How about the referee trying to stop him?
He got confused about who that guy was.
I see.
Keep in mind. I know
Esquire
guys.
from Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. All right, next case.
I know guys who were Mike Kyle's roommates and complained bitterly that he was the worst roommate in the world. This is when Blockbuster was around, so it was still a while ago. He borrowed the guy's. Hey man, you gonna return that DVD? Mike Kyle goes, I'll return it when I finish watching the movie. And the guy's getting late charges a month later. He goes, hey Mike, you gonna return the DVD? In the kitchen, Mike jumps up and says, I'll beat your head in for that DVD. I mean, this kid, he was not a good guy, but I'm just saying.
Allegedly, according to these hearsay reports.
Yeah, according to his roommate.
The Kyle Olson fight, it was a long time ago. Do you remember what year that was, Nate? I'm going to guess like 03, 04, maybe 05.
I might go 5, but let's.
It's a long time in the past, and actually I've been kind of impressed with the way Mike Kyle has conducted himself. So I'm going to throw that.
It's entirely possible that Kyle has changed. We're strictly talking about that incident at that time, not his life as a whole. We're trying to keep things somewhat reasonable, even though it's a pretty broad topic and a pretty silly thing for people to be talking about. But let's see, Brian Olson, 2006, May 2006, so it was 8 years ago. But in the longer window of time, considering that the golden rule has been around, the Lex Talonius, the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth version, goes back to Hammurabi, and I'm trying to find the date. God damn it, Wikipedia, make me look smart. Well,
sure
several thousand years ago.
No Wikipedia could do that, my friend.
Damn it. I've been assured it could. I want my money back. All right. Second case, Gerard Gordeau eye gouging Yuki Nakai in the Vale Tudo International 1994, to the point at which Yuki Nakai fought one more time because it was a same-day tournament. He advanced to the finals. He beat Gordeau. This was a guy who was significantly larger than him. Nakai beat him, goes on to fight Rickson Gracie, just having had his eye gouged out. Now, we can all agree Yuki Nakai is a badass, and that is the Budo spirit to the hilt. That is also completely insane, and he shouldn't be allowed to fight when he's been blinded in one eye. And it turns out that was permanent damage. Yuki Nakai was never able to fight again because Gordeau blinded him. Now, was that a violation of the Golden Rule? Dallas, you first.
Well, I mean, I don't want to be overly logical and burn out bust the bubble of the show, but I would say anything that dirty in an MMA fight, my standard answer is going to be yes. But really, Yuki could have had 20 eyeballs, and it wouldn't have mattered when he fought Rickson.
Well, that is an important point.
and he makes a Misfits reference in the process. 20 eyes in my head, they're all the same. Great, I love that.
Old school Glenn right there.
And what do you come down on this one, Eugene? Are you going to excuse Gordeau's patent violation of the Golden Rule? Because the guy's only got 2 eyes.
No. I believe it's a violation of the Golden Rule because I think we could stop Gordeau any day of any week, any place, any time, and ask him if he'd like his eye gouged out, and I think he would be able to comfortably say, no, thank you, I'm okay. I don't need my eye gouged out today. However, I have to go back to Frank Mir on this one and say, we are big guys. It's a dangerous sport, I think they're guys who I've trained with who like to push it right up to a line where they're almost about to always injure their opponents, and nobody likes training with these guys. But I've enjoyed training with these guys because if you ever want to get as close as possible to what real life is like, that's what those guys are good for. And once again, here we come back to real life versus the sporting life. It's a violation in the sporting life. In real life, I have no faith at all that any guy is going to spare my eye if it comes down to me or him. So
if it comes down to a street fight, that is true enough. And I advise anybody who's interested in the history of true no-rules fighting to look up the term rough and ready in American history, because back in the frontier days, and this is before it was the Old West, this was back when it was the Natchez Trace, and white people were settling Mississippi for the first time. There's an account from a guy who was a touring judge in the Mississippi Territory, and he had to prosecute a case in which a guy was accused of biting another guy's nose off and gouging his eye out. And the judge knew he was going to have a hard time getting fair justice when he looked at the jury, and several of them were missing noses, and there were 3 one-eyed men in the jury. And the account of the fight was that the 2 men squared off, and somebody yelled to the crowd, "Fair and square or rough and ready?" The crowd yelled back, "Rough and ready," almost unanimously, and the first guy then proceeds to bite off the other guy's nose, and that was the beginning of the fight. So anyway, so like Eugene says, street fights are ugly. Frontier street fights were even uglier. I think we can all agree, though, that in a prize fight, and Gordeau not wanting to get his eyes gouged out anywhere, Yuki Nakai, however, forgave Gordeau, which I got to give Nakai points for. But now let's talk about Wes Sims and Frank Mir. This was a UFC fight wherein Frank Mir was going for one of his trademark leg locks, and Wes Sims stomped him on the head, a move that was legal in Pride, illegal in the UFC, violation of the Golden Rule or not. Eugene, you go first.
No, not. One, I love head stomps. 2, I've employed them many a time in a street fight, and I know it happens so fast, you don't know what happened. And 3, Wes Sims, the troll who lived under the bridge, the losingest fighter to have an MMA career, I pretty much loved anything that he did, and I could see that Mir wasn't that badly hurt as a result of it. These are, of course, not exculpatory issues. You asked a simple question, violation of the Golden Rule or not, and having seen Frank Mir do some stuff over the course of time, I would say very clearly, going back to the first case, that Frank Mir understood, and that Ed would have expected no less, and therefore it is not a violation of the Golden Rule.
And Dallas, your take?
Well, maybe more interesting than my answer. I was at that fight live and actually met
UFC 43. Go ahead.
Met and hung out with both Frank and Wes before the fight. Actually, that's the way I met Frank. I was talking to Wes, and then Frank's wife, Jen, came over to me, and she's like, "What was he saying? Was he talking some shit about Frank?" And they were all actually really nice people. Wes is funny. He doesn't give a fuck,
Yep.
So
I love
break,
that guy.
he's a good cat, actually.
Yeah.
I'll go back to my Golden Rule. Obviously, Golden Rule, yeah, that was, it's a fight. Frank wasn't operating under those rules. But just a tangent for a minute, that's a kind of a serious thing with the rules, because that shows that we protect people when they're in their most vulnerable position. I mean, there are times when the unified rules, when you're on your knees looking for a takedown, you do that in a street fight. Someone doesn't have to train. They have to play kickball when they're a kid, and they'll knock your teeth down your throat. So, sorry to actually bring a salient point there.
Well, don't do it again, Dallas. I hope you've learned your lesson.
And keep in mind that the slogan of this company, that's one of the premier companies in the sport, is "as real as it gets." Trademark.
This is indeed a registered trademark of the UFC. I would have to agree that one to me is a little bit of an iffy one. Like, they agreed to follow the rules, but in the heat of the moment, I'm totally fine with Wes being disqualified, but I don't think it's a violation of the Golden Rule insofar as we take his story that it was a heat of the moment thing, and at the same time, Mir's looking to leg lock him, and when you're fighting a leg lock artist, you never know if they're Huzumar Palhares or not, and if your ligaments are on the line, getting DQ'd for head stomping might be the wiser use. But now let's turn to a naughty.
Did you give Gordeau a pass on Yuki?
Oh, hell no. That's a complete obvious violation of the Golden Rule. Like, I mean, you've only got 2 eyes. You're prize fighting. This isn't the Natchez Trace. It's not 1812.
And the difference between that foul and the Wes Sims foul was
the permanent damage, the
Yes,
magnitude of it. Don't fuck with people's eyes in a prize
So if
fight.
Wes's toenail would have went into one of Frank's retinas, or both of them, I mean, he fucking kicked
well,
him like 8
there's
But
times.
there's
yeah,
an issue of intentionality, though, right?
yeah. He wasn't. Gordo was sinking his fingers into Nakai's eyeballs and raking his eyeball, whereas Wes was going for the head. So
You did well there. You did well there.
Thank you,
Nice.
thank you. All right, now let's get to a naughtier topic: performance-enhancing drugs. Let's just say, as a rule, Eugene is always excited.
Wait a minute.
when drugs-
Okay.
Yeah. So, performance-enhancing drugs, as a blanket rule, violation of the golden rule or not. This is a yes/no response, and then we'll get to the discussion. First up, Eugene, yes or no? PEDs violation of the golden rule in MMA.
I think it's an NA, man.
That is neither a yes nor a no, but I'll take that. All right, that was all you get for now. Dallas, yes or no? PEDs violation of the golden rule in MMA.
Don't yell at me for not saying yes or no because I have an important clarifying question. Is this using PEDs or getting busted for PEDs?
This is using PEDs, but that is an important clarification, and we'll get to that next.
My answer is no.
No. Okay. Having said that, now we'll do Dallas's question. Getting busted for PEDs, a violation of the golden rule, yes or no? Eugene, yes. Eugene?
No, he's taking an interesting
Yes
zag.
or no? Yes or no?
I don't understand the question.
Getting busted for PEDs, is that a violation of the golden rule in MMA?
I don't know what you mean.
Yes, okay. And I've got to answer these questions myself. I will say I agree with Dallas. Using PEDs, not a violation of the golden rule. Getting busted, yes, a violation. And Dallas, explain your thinking here.
My thinking is way back on the. I learned everything about MMA pretty much from the Underground Forum back in the day. And Jeremy
I think
Horn.
you meant from Kid Nate and then the Underground Forum. Okay, go ahead.
Jeremy Horn, of all people, and this is way back in the day when he was still. Now he's still in the present day, still one of the nicest, most respected. I mean, the kind of dude people would trust. I mean, I've never even met the dude. I'd trust him to handle my funds or whatever. But he was one of the first ones to. He
That's
came
crazy.
out and said,
I don't trust you to handle my funds, my friend.
But that's something you learned the hard way, Eugene.
I'm not fucking Jeremy Horn, man. I'll tell you right now, don't let me handle it. I'm not handling them well right now.
I know.
I'm not Jeremy fucking Horn. But either way, he came on the Underground and said some outrageous number, like 80 to 90% of every fighter competing are using PEDs. And this was way back in the day.
Yep.
And of course, at first I was like, something's wrong there. But that, as time progressed and we started to see more positive tests and all that, I was like, Jeremy Horn, he was on the fucking money back then. So.
Yep.
All right, and Eugene, your quick thoughts on this. You didn't even get to the dichotomy. Dallas didn't even get to the dichotomy between getting busted and using, but you go ahead, Eugene.
I understand the semantic thing of getting busted is that you agreed. I mean, getting busted, nobody who got busted didn't know what they were getting busted for when they got that second call. They all knew what they were getting.
Sean Shirk was completely shocked, Eugene. He was taking a handful of supplements he bought at the over-the-counter legally. He didn't even know what they were. He was baffled, Eugene.
I am shocked that I do not have a ready response to your secondary phone call and allegations that I've been using. Shocked and surprised that I don't know what to say right now before I talk to my attorney. I mean, yeah, so knowing and being mindful of the fact that you're wrongdoing means that you clearly have violated some sort of golden rule. At least you agree with the premise, like Joseph K. in the trial, that somehow you should be on trial. But using, I would say no. So we are in full agreement there because, my feelings on performance enhancing drugs are complicated.
We're all fans of science. That's one way to say it on this show. We all believe in science. But my thing is, using, it's like, look, the scale of drugs included in that is so broad. I mean, it includes marijuana, which, that doesn't enhance your performance in any way, shape, or form. So,
hey, speak for yourself, my friend.
Well, it depends what you're doing. Obviously, Eddie Bravo, the great jiu-jitsu guru, swears by it. But and some say it's a painkiller, but blah, blah, blah. The way you're caught for marijuana, it doesn't show if you were high or not during the fight. It just shows you smoked at some point in the last month to 2 months before the fight. So, and allegedly everybody's using, so I'm not going to get all,
Hey, tell me something. Do the rules
What?
prohibit you from being drunk? Can you enter the cage drunk?
You cannot enter the cage drunk. Dallas,
Really?
is that correct? You know Dallas has read the rules.
I'm
He's
actually
like,
thinking though, I don't know how they would test for that because it
Yeah.
would be out of your system both before and after they would probably pop you. So that might be
Yep.
a
well, a
little.
breathalyzer, you could test for drunkenness with a breathalyzer. My wife's a prosecutor and has
You
done.
could,
That's
yes, but
yes, but you can also what was the fighter Drew Fickett, who I believe was stopped from fighting because he was visibly, obviously drunk on one occasion or more. Is that correct or not correct? Let me do a quick Google on this here. What's so funny about the man's struggles with alcohol, Eugene? Is this
That part, the struggle is not funny, but believe me, my friend, there are other things I think you could rather do that you would rather do well, rather attempt to do well than fight drunk. But maybe that's the way he came up, man. What did you say? I'll kick your ass.
well, different strokes for different folks. There are some cats who used to show up at the park drunk and they'd be
Yep.
dunking on cats. I mean,
Yep.
it depends. Back in the day,
I had the best street basketball game of my life, which is not saying much of anything. Drunk and just let's just say drunk, but I was all kinds of fucked up and had the best. But that's not. I wouldn't recommend.
No, you
Yeah.
thought you
Drew
thought you had
Fickett's.
the best.
Well, no, everybody told me after the fact, what's the deal? Nate was suddenly dribbling and hitting baskets. So,
were they
Drew Fickett
ruffling your hair and handing you a candy bar when they said that?
No, they
Hey,
were
Nate,
not.
greatest game ever, buddy.
No. Drew Fickett hits bottom. Fight with Shannon the Cannon Rich canceled due to intoxication. So they
well,
will
it's
cancel
Shannon
your
the Cannon.
fight. I know the guy who's.
Right.
First I would have been okay. That breaks the golden rule. You throw Shannon the Cannon in there.
The question wasn't whether or not that breaks the golden rule. Well, I guess see. So giving Shannon the Cannon Rich, who's a fighter notorious for losing virtually every fight.
Yes.
He's the
I've never
definition-
seen him win.
No, the definition of Shannon the Cannon Rich.
He's a good fighter, actually. I've seen him win. He's
Yep.
not like a talentless fool.
Don't make me scream the words Donna Shalala at the top of my voice because I'm getting around to slowly my point, which is using PEDs. Basically, everybody's doing it, so not a violation of the golden rule. Getting busted for it hurts you, hurts the promoter, hurts your opponent. It potentially could cancel the fight if you get busted beforehand, which could cost your opponent a paycheck. You might want to ask Fedor how he feels about Josh Barnett. And as Josh Barnett always wants me to remind people when we talk about his drug test failure that causes a cancellation of affliction, that was not a random test. He was given 48 hours notice. But
And on a really positive note, though, it is. I mean, the UFC is paying people now. They would pay the opponent.
The UFC has always been very good about paying people their show and win bonus when something cancels the fight that's not their fault.
And that is highly, highly commendable too.
Yes, we do bag on the UFC constantly, and we do want to applaud the UFC that is one of the that's right up there with paying for Drew. What's the Miller brother that's got the sick kid? It's not Jim Miller. It's
Dan
Miller. I was wanting to call him Drew Miller, but paying for Dan Miller's kid's heart surgery. So they're capable without that. Okay, what about drug use back in Pride to the extent like Don Fry and Ken Shamrock, who are alleged to have fought each other under the influence of painkillers so doped up that they both broke ankles in mutual ankle locks and did not stop fighting, did not notice. Is that a violation of the golden rule? And Eugene, did you bring enough pasta for the whole class?
I did. And I say being foolish and foolhardy and foolhardy and foolish should not be a violation of the golden rule.
Although it is redundant. And Dallas, what do you think? Does taking a bunch of oxy before a fight, is that a violation of the golden rule?
Well, I just want to, I'll be finicky. You said painkillers at first. That could have been they popped a Vicodin. Oxy's a little more. But I mean, in retrospect,
let's stick to painkillers. The broad term painkillers.
When you're in front of a crowd of 20,000 people, even if you didn't have any painkillers, you can still have a major injury just because of your adrenaline. So. No, my answer is yes. My answer is no. Actually,
what about PCP or ketamine, some kind of dissociative drug that could, according to legend, allow you
What kind of drug?
Dissociative. There's categories of drugs. You've got stimulants that like meth and
soporific.
You've got soporifics that are downers, sedatives, and you've got hallucinogens that allegedly broaden your
Yeah.
horizons, and then
Oh, I
you've got
mean, yeah.
dissociative drugs, which is PCP and ketamine, that makes you feel like you're out of your body and you're watching it from a distance. So
Mhm.
not that I've ever done PCP, but I've been told by very reliable sources it feels like you're walking several feet above the ground. If you can see your body being cut or hurt, and it doesn't register that it's you, so there's no sense of horror
You
when
feel
you
like
see
walking on
something.
sunshine.
Uh, Katrina and the Waves, lovely reference. Maybe that's what
Hey.
Katrina and Kimberly Rue were talking about, one of their happy, blissful PCP experiences. So what about something like that, Dallas? Would that be a violation of the Golden Rule?
Well, is this in Pride? Because I can't think of any fucking drug on the market that would violate the golden rule over there. No offense,
So
Pride.
anything
Come on
goes
now.
in Pride, full
That's
on.
why I was so appalled that they wouldn't give Mark Kerr. He was backstage in the Smash Machine trying to get some painkiller. And the Japanese
Set
guys
him
are like,
up.
"Oh, we don't understand what you're talking about." Oh, you don't understand.
Well, that's the
You know-
difference between on camera and off camera,
Yes, yes.
Eugene.
That much you're right about. Yeah, yeah.
That
As
was the
long as it,
Heisenberg uncertainty principle
yeah.
of drug use there. Like, a lot of people will give you drugs off camera that won't give you drugs on camera. That's just a tip to aspiring documentary filmmakers. But okay.
Actually, again, I just got to say on a serious note, since we are somewhat discussing morals and ethics and all that, the Smashing Machine is a good example on why maybe my or our answer should have been, yes, that does violate the golden rule, because I don't want, Ken Shamrock, Don Fry, all those guys. I don't want them to get all fucked up. I love those
Yeah.
guys. I love what
Everybody who's interested in MMA and the subject of PEDs and drugs of abuse should watch this excellent documentary on Mark Kerr called The Smashing Machine, and you can see why a guy who went from one of the most exciting talents, one of the most feared men in MMA, to a complete failure in record time, how drugs contributed to his downfall, and both steroids and painkillers. I don't even know. They don't even show him shooting up steroids.
Rico Rodriguez is sitting at home going, "What? Where's my sympathy? How come nobody cares about me?"
How about Rico Rodriguez, who was on the Dr. Drew Celebrity Rehab show, and I believe admitted, and
Yes,
forgive me if
admitted
I'm
it.
incorrect, he admitted that he had a DWI or DUI car wreck.
Yep.
And did he move his girlfriend's unconscious body in front of the steering wheel so she would
Yep.
take the blame? Now, does that violate the golden rule? Dallas?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we all agree.
Because he moved
Chivalry.
her body.
If she was
Well,
conscious and agreed to it, if she was down with covering for him, would that violate the golden rule?
No, it wouldn't have. Him moving the body showed a clear-cut case of an awareness that what he was doing was wrong. and
What he was doing driving drunk, not what he was doing moving the body. Jury's still out on whether he knew that was right or wrong.
Right.
No, well, number one, it shows he was wrong, inarguably, and number two, it showed he didn't try to just get himself out of it. He tried to straight up pin it on not only an innocent but fucking unconscious female. So that's a hell of a date. The chicks are lining up to date Rico.
However, does he get credit for admitting it? And this is something I've never been sure about. Yes. Okay. Good.
In my opinion, absolutely.
So you're asking us to clear that up for you, Eugene? And now next time.
Well, no. So if Hitler comes out and says,
he's about to.
If he logs on from Argentina,
where he escaped in the submarine from Spain after the World War, if he says, I really fucked up. I blew it. I blew it.
Would we give him forgiveness? Do you guys, one last reference before we get right on back on time, because we've got a little time left and I want to cover the three topics. Anybody heard of Guy Dura? This is a yes or no question.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Guy Dura? Okay, Eugene has, Dallas hasn't. This was a guy who went from being Joan of Arc's...
You're mispronouncing his name, but I got it.
Of course I am, but you tell us how to pronounce it. It's French.
I know, my French is terrible.
All right, so it's Guy Dura is how I say it. It's Gilles de Race is how it's spelled. Gilles.
Yep.
Deris. So Google him. He was Joan of Arc's right-hand man, a heroic general in the wars to liberate France. That's the reason Joan of Arc is considered a saint. That and hearing voices she claimed were the voice of God. So he's got this hero role in French history, one of the great heroes of French history, and at the same time he's right up there with old Elizabeth Bathory, and I hope you know who she is, Dallas. She's got heavy metal exposure. Yep. He went on as the baron of his district, meaning the absolute ruler of his 20% of France, to systematically murder children, and according to him, in a quest to see the devil, based on what his occult advisors were telling him. And they dreamed up more and more sadistic ways to kill children. And at the end, the big joke was, Gidira, look in the mirror. There's the devil, asshole. I'll see you later. Anyway, Gidira, at his trial, begged forgiveness and was granted the forgiveness. This is how strong the Christianity was in medieval France. Everybody there cried for this poor blessed sinner, hugged him, shared their love, said, "You're just as good as me," and then had him drawn and quartered promptly and hung, which to me says these guys had a system and it worked for them at the time. But
that was a great ending to that story. I like that.
Thanks. That's what I want.
But who didn't hug him goodbye?
The victims.
The dead kids. Yeah. They didn't
Although some of the kids were killed as he was cradling them. They created more and more elaborate scenarios where the kid would believe Gidira was saving them, first from accidents, then from from murder, and so that they would be giving him absolute love and gratitude as he slipped a razor blade or a needle into their medulla oblongata.
Did I mention how I'm going to not be sober at all whatsoever for this next show?
That is excellent advice. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, you're lucky that you. Well, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so
you'd be sobbing now if you were drunk. So.
Yeah. Yes, it's true. He'd be saying, "I love you, Nate. I love you." Anyway, I love you,
I
man.
don't drink.
Yeah, that's a good. Hey. But yeah. All right. So what about the B.J. Penn versus Frankie Edgar and Rory MacDonald situation? Which was a better following of the Golden Rule, Rory MacDonald or Frankie Edgar? Rory MacDonald, who didn't finish B.J. Penn, who patently coasted by dancing and goofing around in front of B.J. Penn, or Frankie Edgar, who went out and finished B.J. Penn with no mercy? Which guy followed the Golden Rule? What would B.J. Penn have done? Dallas.
Frankie Edgar.
All right, Eugene.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Frankie Edgar because let's ask B.J. Penn what felt worse. I guarantee you, having been there, the Rory MacDonald thing feels a lot worse. You know?
Exactly.
That's pride. There's physical pain and then there's pride, and the dudes
exactly.
that fight.
I have to agree with the rest of our panel that Frankie Edgar is the guy who paid B.J. Penn the honor of treating him like a dangerous opponent, like anybody else. Fight to finish the guy because you can't afford not to, because you got to treat this guy as a real menace, and that mocking an opponent who's been bested is not an exercise of the Golden Rule. Sometimes that's cool, like in the Frank Shamrock John Lober rematch. Do y'all remember this one? Like
The gift wrap.
Yes. Well, and also when he knocked him down and then invited him to step back up because John Lober had bragged that he was going to knock Frank Shamrock down and then invite him to step back up so he could beat him down some more. That was totes the Golden Rule right there. I think we can all agree.
Well, we're talking about Frank Shamrock, so you know.
Are you saying the Golden Rule doesn't apply to Frank Shamrock?
This is the guy who, during a photo shoot for Grappling Magazine, for an article I was doing with him, not only beat me savagely, but because it was so funny, he edged me over to the edge of the mat at AKA, because they use a ring at AKA, not a cage, and took the bottom rope and proceeded to jam it under my chin, on my throat, hopping up and down on it while smiling beatifically at the photographer who he was hitting on. You know?
So you're saying the
Golden Rule... spitting game right there. I mean, I thought I had a couple good lines.
I mean, well, no, come on.
Hey,
would you do the same thing to Frank Shamrock?
I would now.
See, so it was the Golden Rule. Okay, all right. And I'm not going to tell you a story about the Beatles savagely stomping a 50-year-old photographer in a swimming pool to the point they broke his toes during a photo session because we don't have time.
Are you sure you're not going to tell that story?
I'm not, because that's how disciplined I am, and I admire the Beatles all the more for it. All right. What about Dan Henderson waiting until the last possible moment, waiting more than a week according to some accounts, maybe even 2 weeks after he hurt his knee, before he tells the UFC and John Jones that he won't be able to fight at UFC 151, not even giving him a heads up that he might have an injury so they could plan a backup? Was that violating the Golden Rule? Dallas?
Well, I mean, the background is that he thought, he wasn't sure. He had an injury, but he
thought there was a chance he would be able to fight.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Really?
Yeah, in my mind, that's business, man. You don't give a shit. I tell you whatever I want to tell you. It's business.
Even though he fucked the guys over and they weren't able to do their business, because he could have said, "Hey, I may be able to fight, I may not be able to fight. Why don't you guys get a backup lined up just in case?"
Well, yeah, but that's not a yes or no answer. Yeah, that would have been good, but I mean, think of how many people, maybe
But
even.
not good or bad. Does it violate? Does it follow the golden rule of do unto others as you would have them do unto you?
I'm okay with it. That's a subjective one because
Because
everyone, if he would have pulled out, let's say they would have said we don't want to risk it, we want to line up this fight, people would have been clowning Hendo for being a
Yep.
pussy. He pulled out like 3 weeks before the fight, you know.
yeah, or what if? And also, it's a telling. If he was able to fight, it's telling your opponent you have a hurt knee, which you never
There
want
you
to do.
go. There you go.
All right. What about John Jones turning down the fight, the substitute fight with Chael Sonnen, violating the golden rule or not?
That's also a business. That's
Yeah,
also a
not at
business.
All
all.
right, so not a violation of the golden rule. All right. What about the very existence of Chael Sonnen in the sport? This is somebody asked me this on Twitter. Like, let me let him speak. Let me try to read the question. Can morality justify the presence of Chael Sonnen types in MMA? Let's say, can the golden rule justify the presence of Chael Sonnen types in MMA? What do you think? The golden rule
You need to define your terms here.
of Chael Sonnen types.
What types? What is that? What's a Chael Sonnen type? A guy who lies? Anybody on the show right now not be that guy?
I can say I can't recall telling any lies on this episode. How about that?
Whoa. I'm going to talk about narrowing it down. This episode's only like 53 minutes old. What the
Way
hell
to
was
put yourself out there,
55
Nate.
minutes ago?
I'm stringing together a hot streak of honesty in the golden rule. So yeah, I think the Chael Sonnen thing that's was a bit too broad for the terms of this particular show.
Well, since I'm unclear on it, I'll say Chael's fine, man. So he got popped for drugs like everybody else. Chael's awesome, man. He's a good dude. He's funny. MMA can be boring as shit.
We've
And
condemned.
now they're talking about raping him for $250,000. You got to be kidding me. If I
The
was
fine, yeah. What you mean is that the NSAC is talking about fining Chael Sonnen $250,000. Even I have to admit, wow.
Why? Why though?
For using HGH and EPO, and presumably also going on the air and lying about it. Now, how about this?
At this point now, if I'm Chael, now I'm starting to do a little pushback. You guys
Yeah.
want to play some hardball? I know things. I got
Golden rule. Yep.
Yes. All right. How about this for the golden rule? Was it a violation of the golden rule for Chael to go on the air on Fox Sports 1 with Dana White, let Dana White defend him, let the Fox Sports host basically cover for him? I mean, the guy apologized for asking Chael the tough questions. Chael knew this whole time he had been doing HGH and EPO, or presumably. Chael could come out with the story that little elves came out and injected him in his sleep. But presumably Chael knew that he had used these substances. My assumption is he thought they would not be able to catch him using these substances. Was that a violation of the rule to go on the air with your boss and your two bosses, both the UFC and Fox were his employers, go on the air and let them stick their necks out for you when you knew that not only were the stories you were telling about the drugs you'd already been caught using were a lie, but that you had used other drugs and could potentially be caught by a blood test? Now, did that violate the golden rule?
Yeah, but what's he going to say?
All right, one at a time. Dallas first.
Dana, we're going to go on TV? Actually, let's...
He had a number of options. He could have said, Dana, man, I don't feel comfortable. I think I should just issue a public statement and not do a TV spot right now.
I'm going to have to quote Arthur Fonzarelli on this one and go, hey. You know?
That's the only Fonzie quote I know. I like that.
Hey. Whatever, man. You lied. Whatever. Fuck that. You know? He was fighting for his life then. And this is for all the guys who think that I'm only going to bat. Some guy asked me, you're only going to bat for him because he's a black fighter. I go, what, are you kidding me?
Chael Sonnen is not a black fighter.
Prove it.
Might be Hispanic.
And I'm going to bat for him, you know? Whatever, man. The guy was trying to stay alive. You know, I'll tell you a story. At one point, some guy enraged about a certain lapse in morality on my part came to me to ask for clarification about the lapse, right? And he said, did you do such and such and such and such?
Did this have to do with your confessed sex addiction?
Yes, it did.
Okay, all right. I think I know where we're going with this. Anyway, go ahead.
And I looked him in the face and I said, no, I did not. He knew I was lying. I knew he knew. I knew that he knew I was lying. We all knew that I was lying, but only a fool would have answered that question in the positive. And I'm no fool.
And
And with
that's
Chael, anything other than 100% compliance probably would have not
Correct.
worked for him.
Correct. Yeah.
yeah. He's got to go balls to the wall, pedal to the metal. I would beg to differ. I think that going on the air and exposing, getting your boss to lie for you, I think, or not putting your boss in a position where he's supporting you when he wouldn't if he knew all the facts. I
That's
think.
bad form, but it's bad form, but it's not a violation of the golden rule.
Okay, well that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
If I were Chael, I would always use the Steve Romaine exit. I don't know if you remember Steve Romaine, the John Candy character from SCTV.
Of course. Was this the guy who saved a lot of lives? No, that was
Yes.
that wasn't a John Candy character. That was a Joe Flaherty character. He was running against John Candy's mayor Tommy Flanagan, I think.
No,
Mayor.
no. Not
What was the
Flanagan.
mayor?
Tommy Flanagan is the character from Saturday Night Live, the liar.
Yeah, the liar. The John.
You're thinking of Tommy Shanks, who
Yes, Tommy Shanks.
ran against Vic Arpeggio, Joe Flaherty character.
Okay. I'm conflating my SCTV characters. Get back to the John Candy character you were originally talking about. Say his name again and tell the story.
I don't remember what I said now. You interrupted me enough so that
All right.
No.
The moral of the story, kids, is watch
no.
SCTV. It's funny as shit.
No. They had this John Candy character on SCTV, and he. I got nothing. I don't remember.
All right. Well,
You destroyed the moment. I blame you.
Well,
of
let me
course,
bring
blame
us back
Kid
on
Nate.
track
That's
because when Eugene said it doesn't break the golden rule but poor form, I think that's a solid subcategory that should be on the table for us.
Oh, Steve Romaine. Sorry.
Steve Romaine. Okay, go back to it.
So anytime they would ask Steve Romaine a difficult question, he would pause for a bit and say, "I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question." That's what Chael should have done. He should, or fall on the floor. That's another good one. Falling on the floor. And when I was a kid, my mother told me if ever I got in any trouble and I couldn't get out, dialing 911. That also helps.
Yes, those are all
How
good
fucking
things.
funny would it have been if Dana asked Chael and Chael's like, "Hold on a minute, Dana," and grabs his cell phone. Boop, boop, boop.
I also got
Give me a
to
second.
remind everybody of Martin Short's great Nathan Thurm character on both SCTV
great.
and Saturday Night Live, who was a defense attorney or an attorney for various male factors, always inevitably. And whenever asked a question, he would say, "Why are you asking me that question? I think that you should be asked that question. Why are you asking my client that question? You're the one. I'm not being defensive. I think you're being defensive." And
Maybe you
that
should point the finger at you. Maybe you should point the finger at you instead of pointing the finger at everybody else.
Exactly. Why don't you look inside yourself and ask yourself, did you do whatever it was? And so, yes.
That is
these
great.
are, so, I don't know. Let us know what you think of this show. If you want to see us go through the Ten Commandments one by one and discuss how they could be applied to MMA or not.
It should be noted that I do not support any of them at all in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, these are bold claims. These are bold claims from a man with 3 daughters.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about honor thy father and mother very soon, Eugene. So we'll have
Can
to
we go ahead and throw into that poll, yay or nay, if I should be unsober and to what degree for the next show? Because that would probably
The question, let's frame it as, should Dallas take his medicine before?
Actually, just have him lay out. Just have him lay out like what I should.
Well, what I want to do.
No,
ingest.
we're not gonna let people solicit illegal activity on your part.
No, I
That
want
actually
to
would have
do
made
the
the
show
show
really
fun.
early.
I would have looked forward to it.
Yes, people have done that sort of thing, but not on a family show like this one.
I want to do the show really early and then have him get drunk. Because to have him drunk before 11 would just be fantastic.
I don't drink.
Yeah.
Oh.
So he doesn't drink. He's talking about taking some Benadryl and getting all knotted out
neither.
like Dana White did at
Me
UFC Albuquerque. So
Painkillers.
Or like Chuck Liddell on that news show in Dallas.
he was very sleepy. So that's the question. We don't want Dallas to get very sleepy though. We want him to be animated. All right. So
That was
give us a like.
Animated. That's the wrong way. The other way.
That
Give
was
us
like
a like.
Robo. You know,
Hey, I'm
back in
doing the
day.
sign off, guys. Come on.
Oh, okay.
Work with me here. Give us a like
All right.
if you like this video on YouTube. That's the thumb right below your screen. Hit the thumbs up, not the thumbs down. Subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube, and you'll get all our videos. Follow us on Twitter at KidNate, at Eugene S. Robinson, at Uncle Justice, which is Dallas Winston, even though the two names have nothing to do with one another. Then you'll get all our tweets. Follow Bloody Elbow on Twitter. You'll also get
Retweets.
news of this. Read bloodyelbow.com.
I'll taste our tweets.
Yes, yes. Read BloodyElbow.com, and you'll read all our various pontifications. You can also follow Eugene at Aussie.com, not Oxy.com, but Aussie.com.
Aussie.OZY. I got an article
Family
today
show.
on bodybuilding.
I saw that, and I'm looking forward to reading it because I've never understood the appeal of this pursuit. So I'm hoping that you can enlighten me and
I do a
maybe
little-
broaden my
I do a
horizons a
little
little
bit.
bit.
And you got to wait till my steroid piece comes up. My
I'm
steroid
looking.
testimonial.
A testimonial. I look forward to this. What's the due date on this magnum opus?
It's a very delicate piece to write, so it's taken me a while.
I see. Well,
I
snitches
thought it was a
speaking.
family
Snitches.
show. Eugene can talk about oxy and steroids, but I can't even.
Ozzy,
There's an imbalance.
Ozzy, as in Ozymandias, as in the Percy Bysshe Shelley poem, "Look on ye mighty and despair. Look upon my works, ye mighty and despair." Anyway.
Correct. P.B.
All
Shelley.
right.
Also a character in Clockwork Orange.
P.B. Shelley was a character in Clockwork Orange? Like a character was named P.B. Shelley?
No. They had in the book. They had what they used to call their maskies, and one of them had P.B. Shelley.
That was people. That was written for quite a literary demo that would recognize the face of P.B. Shelley as a mask. So sort of like
it never made it to the movie. It was only in the book.
In the movie, they used dick nose masks, so it tells you the
It's
difference.
a little more widely appealing.
Yeah, well, more widely recognized. How about that? All right.
Also a Robert Crumb character, Dick Nose. If you remember.
Yes, an excellent Robert R. Crumb character. All right, so there's a UFC coming up, not next weekend, but next Wednesday. We'll try to rush in and get the Care Don't Care and all the vivisections. Dallas and Zane and Connor, Zane Simon and Connor Rubis are going to be back tomorrow.
I'll tell you about that guy.
Exactly. We're going to be back tomorrow with a look back on the UFC 175 main event, Chris Weidman versus Lyoto Machida. They're all going to be watching them fight again and talking about the stratagems and tactics that made that fight what it was. Dallas, do we have a name for that show?
No.
We
have too many names. No, we have a little too many already.
We'll have a name and we'll have a brand because that's what I do. I brand things and name things.
I'd like to officially state here for the first time that I love Chris Weidman.
All right. Even though he's not black.
like I said,
Prove it.
I said, do you think Asian guys are popping boners when they're driving around on a Toyota because it was made in Japan? Come on, man. Wise up.
It depends what brand of Asian they are because a lot of Asians hate Japanese people. As I learned in college, there's a lot of intra-Asian racism. Anyway.
The imagery from this show alone is worth the hour I spend here.
Exactly. All right. And Dallas, you're going to be making a graphic for this, MMA Morality. We'll need that ASAP. Because that's, or if you can come with a better brand name for this show.
But anyway. Just take a few pages out of Beaver Hunt, slap it up there, and then you're set.
That's what I submit to my articles,
yourself
though.
again, you old dinosaur. Nobody knows what Beaver Hunt is. Now that's called the internet.
All of it.
Yes. All right. So
Family show. Family
show, indeed.
Beaver Hunt is it's a nature thing. It's a nature thing.
Yes, everybody loves fuzzy, adorable, big-toothed beavers. So,
What the fuck? Wrap it up.
Wrap it up. We're out of here. Adios, MMA aficionados.
All
This is
right.
Good night. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
All right, see you guys. Bye.